Our next speaker is Elizabeth Walsh, who again has given me and us an awful lot of our time in the last few weeks with advice and counselling regarding ideas and attitudes and influences. And Elizabeth has a master's degree in companion animal behaviour counselling from the University of Southampton, and she looks at the public perception of dogs in Ireland. And she has continued her education at Queen's University Belfast, having trained and worked and demonstrated dogs for 14 years, and was a co-founder and managed Emily Dogs. Elizabeth has put together an awful lot of papers on dog behaviour, welfare and horse welfare, and I'm delighted that she's come to speak to us here, as she's been on a number of seminars, both nationally and internationally. So I'm looking forward to Elizabeth collaborating with us on our project. So I'd like you to welcome Elizabeth Walsh to the podium.
Good afternoon. I'll read through the slides as I go, because I don't think you're going to be able to read them unless you've got binoculars. I'm going to be talking about Emily Assistance Dogs, which was the first assistance dog charity here in Ireland. Assistance dogs generally, temperamental dogs, puppy walking programs, dog breeds, welfare issues and legislation. And my background is scientific, so I'm looking at these issues and the strengths and weaknesses of them from a scientific-based perspective, from the literature that's there, from the studies that have been done. Very briefly, as you're aware, Mrs. Dunlop established Irish Guide Dogs in 1976, and her dog was a German Shepherd. I was fortunate that Mrs. Dunlop was a friend of mine. She was fully supportive of Emily Dogs Ireland, which was assistance dogs for people with disabilities, and the charity was established in 1995. Emily Dogs was a registered charity. It was entirely voluntary, it never paid a salary, and it was the first charity in Ireland to train assistance dogs with disability. The first demonstration of assistance dogs trained was Susie, a Labrador Retriever, and that's a photograph of Susie with saddlebags in which she could carry light objects. She picked, fetched, sounded an alarm, identified need, opened doors, emptied washing machines, among other tasks. That was emptying a washing machine, opening an internal door. The second demonstration of the dog was Ben, who was a German Shepherd, bred and donated by Katrina Grace. Here he's working in a stability harness. Now, Emily Dogs identified the need for assistance dogs for people with disabilities and seizure alert dogs for those with epilepsy. We liaised between various groups within the sector and highlighted the lack of services for those with disabilities. Made submissions at both local council and government level and met with elected representatives at European level. We demonstrated again at Irish Kennel Club shows, who always made us very welcome. Local agricultural shows, the Shannon Steam Rally Cork show. We took part in Multiple Sclerosis Ireland Days and presented seminars nationwide, visited schools and did demonstrations, and promoted the use of reflective safety wear, which we designed for dogs and sold for charity. We appeared on nationwide national news, Beastly Behaviour, The Late Late Show, 360, which was a documentary made about the charity, and numerous national radio nationwide and newspaper and magazine articles. The dogs met many children, politicians, President Mary McAleese and Taoiseach Ahern. They were instantly recognised, though, even without their working ideology, because they were a Labrador and a German Shepherd working together. And even when they were on the beach, children would run up to them and call them by name, which was actually really funny, because no one ever recognised me. They acted as ambassadors for and promoted the role of assistance dogs. This was a typical IPC demonstration, which you probably can't see. It would work one dog with a wheelchair user and one dog with stability work and do various retrieval work or whatever. of assistance dogs. We have guide dogs for the blind and visually impaired, assistance dogs for people with disabilities, hearing dogs for the deaf, seizure alert dogs and diabetes alert dogs, and then support dogs for children with autism. And because dogs for children with autism are worked in a triad with the parent taking control of the dog, sometimes they can be referred to as therapy dogs for a child rather than assistance dogs. So sometimes there's been debate over that one. The range of client. If the dog is placed with an adult, in the case of disability or a guide dog, there's the possibility of an independent lifestyle, of perhaps living in a person's own home, a freedom from dependency. A seizure alert dogs provide the possibility of a safe life. It makes the difference of being able to stay on one's own, not being with another person 24 hours a day. It makes such a difference to a person's life. It's cost effective from a government viewpoint. Alan Blaskovich did a study in 1996 where they looked at people with ambulatory disabilities. Some were placed with an assistance dog, some weren't. The ones that were placed with an assistance dog were studied over an 18-month period, and it was found that they gained independence, they used less carer hours, both paid and voluntary, in that time. So it was proven that it was cost effective. Now, the Irish Guide Dog, a quote from them, is that the primary function of an assistance dog is to help a child by promoting calmness and acting as a safety aid to the parent. So, autism assistance dogs are seen as an aid to safety, calming, and a side effect has been a social facilitator. Other types of assistance dogs may benefit children, but there are many factors and variables influence the partnership, as influence any partnerships. And I think that a very important fact is that every person with a disability, just as every child with a disability may not be suitable for a dog, just as every person in the world is not suitable for a pet. So it is not the fix-all, be-all and end-all of the end of the line. Everyone is not suitable for a dog, so there's many factors and variables influencing this. And the other big question when you're placing a dog with a child is the dog being trained and utilised for the purpose it was trained? Because these dogs are very, very expensive to train, and if it's placed with an adult, that has been seen to benefit in terms of the cost of carers, the independence it confers. If it's placed with a child, it has to be utilised. So it's not a babysitting service in the case of a child with a physical disability. The dog has to be utilised. And I mean, this sounds like a very cruel thing to say, but these are the facts. This is not a well-trained pet. This is a highly trained assistance animal. Now, we have to look at temperament, because temperament in dogs is extremely important when you're talking about dogs. Sorry, I think I then stepped on something. When you're talking about dogs. Temperament may be defined as differences in behaviour between individuals that are relatively consistently displayed when tested under similar conditions. Now, this is as a result of the combined genetic determined characteristics. Now, these are characteristics of the breed, okay, and of the epigenetic development. Epigenetic development is simply development of socialization and training and all the influences on the puppy as it grows into an adult dog. So you have a result of the combined genetic determined characteristics and the epigenetic development which results in acquired behaviour. So the two of these things end up in what we around here. You take your Labrador, you know exactly what you have. We know what's in that breed, we have a parcel of genetic material, and we know what we have, what we're working with. So you know what you're likely to get at the end. If you do X and Y with it, and it progresses to an adult, you have an idea of what you may end up with. If you have a crossbreed, you change that, because you have a mixture of genes. So there's a huge difference. Sorry, we have a stall here. Just while please see to this. So it's very, very important that when you're looking at what you're working with puppies or with dogs, choosing breeds. For a long time, Guide Dogs and Systems Dogs Association stuck very closely to try to test breeds. So you had your Labradors, your Golden Retrievers, and your German Shepherds. And these breeds were used consistently. And they were bred to be, if you like, better or the best breeding. And you had exactly what you knew that you were getting. Now, I'm going to give you some facts in a moment about behavioural testing. Because what we have discovered is that personality, you can't give a particular time frame for when personality settles in a maturing dog. So you can't say a dog definitely has its personality settled, and you can test it definitely at 16 months or 18 months. But what we do know is that it is not possible to test a puppy and absolutely know that that puppy is going to make a certain type of personality when it is an adult. The only thing is that you can, with some reliability, tell is whether there's going to be aggressiveness or submissiveness. And in working dogs, you can also tell on a scale for what's called a boldness shyness scale. This makes it very difficult in temperament testing and in choosing the puppies that should go forward. But what I just say is that we have to be very, very careful, because when we choose puppies to breed from and to train from, we are using resources, we are using time, and for every puppy that fails, there's basically money being wasted, there's puppy walking facilities that have been wasted, there's disappointment. So it's in everyone's interest that what you start off with is going to succeed at the other end of the scale. So, back to where we were discussing personality. So different breeds of dog, different temperament and personality, making them more or less suitable for work. And this has been investigated by Skortberg, who is a Swedish researcher. And there's debate over when personality stabilizes. And as I say, the research has seen that when personality stabilizes, it is stable. But before this maturity, you cannot say that the personality is stable. You cannot say that this dog is definitely going to have this type of personality. In a review of These have not been reported in the literature and not validated. Now what this means is that if temperament is being tested for, the measures used have to be valid. Now that sounds like it's as plain as the nose on my face, but actually it's not. And many associations use tests which haven't been validated in the literature. And if they haven't, it's in their own interests and in everyone's interests to publish them. Because it's like what we're talking about here today. If resources are pooled, everyone benefits by them. And if you're using a temperament test, or if you're assessing, you have to be doing exactly what it is you think you're doing. So say, for example, there was one temperament test being administered in one facility, and they were getting an anomaly, and they couldn't quite put their finger on what it was. And the difference was that for one part of it, there had been a female administering the test, and for one part of it there had been a male, and there was a difference in the dog's reaction. Puppy walking programs. They harness puppy walkers to educate puppies, and these puppy walkers are selected for their suitability and experience. Now, in spite of this, there's a failure rate on all puppy walking programs, and this is a really, really important point. In 2006, 44% of CNI New Jersey had a failure rate, and 50% of guide dogs in South Wales. Research by Bat et al. Into the value of puppy raisers' assessments of potential guide dogs' behaviour found that an additional dog in the home decreased the chance of the puppy's success. Now, there may have been two reasons for that. It could be that there's less time put into the puppy, or it could be that the puppy spends more time playing with the other dog. Either way, it decreased the chance of the dog's success. Their findings, the puppy raisers could assist in identifying the puppies most likely to succeed, concurred with a study in Italy by Lozano et al., which suggests that puppy raisers can identify undesirable behaviours and contribute to early assessment of such puppies. Now, I'm afraid this probably goes against the type of programme that my canine companion are doing with putting puppies with the families, because the families don't have the experience, and many may not have exactly the amount of time, because puppy walkers have experience, they can offshoot problems much earlier, and all the research to date that we have in all the literature suggests that really this is the best way to be raising these dogs and the most successful. And the other problem is that no matter what you do, there is still a failure rate. There's going to be disappointment somewhere. So someone's going to raise their puppy and still not have a dog. Guide dogs are most demanding of their dogs as the client is visually impaired. And obviously, dogs paired with children have to be above reproach. In 2008, a study by Burroughs et al. Reported one dog of 11 was returned from being placed with a dog on an assistance dog with autism program because it ran after an unknown dog while attached to a child with autism. Another dog in the same study was returned as the dog proved too energetic as a match for that child and was successfully paired with a different child. Now, this study was done in Canada. Now, personalities must be matched, and this was shown by that study because one dog was returned. It didn't suit the child it was paired with, but it was successfully paired with another child. However, the dog that took off with the child with autism obviously wasn't suitable at all. When placing a dog with an adult with a disability, it must be recognised that the workload may increase. Adults that get assistance dogs, adults with disabilities, will become if they have acquired a disability, it's necessary to know, well, what was the former level of activity like in life? Because they may be asking more from the dog than you actually think they might. And breed of dog should be a strong consideration. I'm going to present some of the research that I did as part of completion of my master's degree at the University of Southampton. It was into breed of dog, and it's relevant here because, let me see why. It was in relation to attitude, and first off, attitude to people with disabilities has been subjected to negative, well, people with disabilities have been subjected to negative attitude, and I'm sure people here have found that with their children, or people with disabilities have found that, and the stigma can occur both to the person and any aids they might use, so people with long canes, people with walking aids. And increased social interaction has been reported by assistance dog owners, and visually impaired and blind people in the UK receive more favourable treatment when they have a guide dog. It has been suggested that a dog provides a common focus for all people. The dog appears to alter the environment and the perception of the person, and one aspect of the dog's environment which was not investigated was the handler appearance. The view was expressed that German Shepherds may not be suitable for guide and assistance work due to perceived negative public opinion, which might cause missed opportunities for assistance dog societies, and the owners of existing working assistance dogs may be subject to an added stigma in addition to that of a disability. So are these dogs friendly or unfriendly? Sorry, I've just done it again. Sorry. Okay, we have a German Shepherd, a Labrador, and an Airedale. Now, the German Shepherd and Labrador were chosen because of their working dog associations, and the Airedale was used as control because it was an unknown breed in Ireland at the time the study was done, and the numbers registered in the Kennels Club were very low compared to the other two breeds. The hypothesis was that the perception of dog temperament would be influenced by the breed of dog, the appearance of the dog's handler, and people's experience of dogs. This just gives the numbers of dogs that were registered with the IKC at the time. And the research was questionnaire survey of students in Cork CIT. There were 463 students, and the respondents were asked to rate photographs of 3 breeds of dog alone, and then to rate the same dogs with 3 of 15 possible categories of owner. They then completed a questionnaire. They were also asked to rate the 3 breeds and 11 other breeds of dog without a visual image, because I wanted to rate consistency of ratings. So I wanted to see what they rated when they saw the dogs and when they didn't actually see the dogs. The categories of owner were a toddler, and then a child, a professional person, an elderly person, a rough-looking person, a wheelchair user, a guide dog owner, and a Garda, and they were male and female, and guide dogs gave me the use of the harness. Each participant received one group of 3 owners, and they either received male or female to avoid a gender bias. And the respondents were aged 18 to 21, Irish nationality mainly, and neither background nor course had an effect. Now, in breed temperament ratings, Labradors were rated as the most friendly. German Shepherds were rated more friendly than West Highlands, Bassets, Boxers, Airedales, and Rottweilers. This was without a visual image. And the Airedale was rated friendlier than the Rottweiler, but less friendly than everything else. Now remember, most people didn't know what an Airedale was. Okay? When there was a handler present, there was a difference in mean rating for temperament for a dog alone and for the same dog with a handler, and there was between breed differences. Different breeds were rated differently, all breeds differed according to handler category. And the differences were consistent with each breed except for the Airedale. There were 4 categories same photograph everyone got. So they were rating exactly the same dog, depending on what handler they were put with. Now the thing was, is all of these categories suggest a dog with particular training. It's unclear whether the handler appearance is influence or the suggestion of a particular capability of the dog, or alternatively the rating could be influenced by the appearance of the handler and spontaneous trait transference, because there's research done by a researcher, May et al., and what they found was that the traits of the handler may extend to the dog. So basically, if you look aggressive, your dog may look aggressive, or if you look nice, your dog may look nice. So this may happen also. However, the conclusion was that handler appearance was found to have a significant effect on the temperament rating of dogs. Now this is very important when we're choosing dogs for assistance dog training, because it does mean that if we're using a German Shepherd looks friendlier if it's with a person in a wheelchair or in a guide dog harness, and it looks less friendly if it's with a guard. And it is the only dog that has been used successfully in all facets of work. It has been described as the Ferrari of working dogs. It's not a dog for everyone, but it is a super working dog. And people's perception is influenced by their experience and knowledge of dogs. Now I've put down, this is only sort of the piece of the research that I wanted to present here, because it's very relevant to dog breed and training. Now, the last point that I wanted to look at was the safety and welfare of the working unit, which must be of primary importance at all times. Ordinary dogs do extraordinary jobs, but we have to remember these are all ordinary dogs. Welfare issues. They must be given adequate rest breaks, adequate opportunity for elimination, time away from a child and partnered with a child. They must be removed from stressful situations should they arise. They must be monitored carefully while working for stress and must be given adequate time for sleep. A 2008 study by Burroughs et al. In Canada again found that the welfare of service dogs for children with autism can become compromised unintentionally. There can be negative attention such as prodding from the child with autism, and the dog receives commands from the parent while being asked to bond with the child, and perhaps ignored by the rest of the family to facilitate that bond. But that can result in social exclusion for the dog. Dogs are social animals. This can cause stress to the dog. There can also be lack of sufficient rest time, opportunity to excrete, recreational activity, and social opportunity. Now, other stressors with working dogs. There can be a problem with other dogs, which can cause stress, and one of these problems is signalling. Again, if we go back to the German Shepherd, as I'm sure you're all aware, while dogs and wolves parted company 100,000 years ago, the communication system they inherited is from wolves. So our German Shepherd, with large ears, long tail and hackles, and a marked face, can communicate perfectly. If I have one up there at the top of the stairs, I can tell what emotional state he is from here. I don't have to be up beside him. And he can tell another dog down here what emotional state he is. The dog doesn't have to go up to investigate. As dogs look less like the German Shepherd and more like a fluffy rug, they can signal less well. This affects how they behave around other dogs. It affects their ability to signal, and it affects their level of stress when they're working. Alteration in environment is a stressor. This is something that affects dogs when they travel, when they're working, introduction to new environments, alterations in relationships within the home, illness, whether it's they're ill or the person they're working with is ill, tensions, lack of consistency. And lack of consistency can arise unintentionally. It can also arise where there's children involved. Children aren't consistent. With the best of intentions, children aren't consistent, and the day they are, they won't be children anymore. Transport. We touched this morning on aircraft travel. There is a high cost to producing an assistance dog. A lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of matching, a lot of training. It is impossible to predict how an animal will react when it travels. The person who's travelling in it may not pick up the signs of stress from the dog the first time that dog goes in an aircraft. It may not see it the second time. The risk to that partnership could put everything at risk, bringing the dog up in an aircraft. I would just say that is a point really, really worth thinking about. It's not to be taken lightly anyway. Legislation. We've hit on this morning. For dog training generally in this country, there's a lack of regulation and legislation. There is nothing at all regarding assistance dogs. There is a lack of need for competency or to work within personal competency. This can lead to potentially high-risk situations. The demand is there for assistance dogs. Everyone here obviously is committed to assistance dogs or we wouldn't be here. I worked voluntarily for 14 years. I would only have done that if I was absolutely committed to it. My colleague Jim Stevens, who's going to speak after me, also worked for assistance dogs. So, I mean, we're definitely here offering our support. A structure and framework is required, and cooperation is required, because basically, I mean, the research is there, and the feeling is that there's research comes on board the whole time, because people want to make this better, safer, more accessible. But to have that filter down to everyone who needs it is always a little bit more difficult. The big thing is to have some legislation. A group such as a working group, an umbrella group, it's absolutely an excellent idea. Thank you very much to Sean for his offer of financial support and the other supports from the IKC. I think that an awful lot of very positive things have come out of today. I think that Andrew's initiative to organise this day was far-reaching, but now it's up to everyone who is here to actually do something with that. The last thing I will show you is, I showed you this slide a few minutes ago. Well, this is a working harness. Now you notice this is shaped, it's slanted. A support harness should always be slanted. The reason being that the weight has to be deflected off the dog's back. You should never be able to put your weight on the dog's back if you're working a stability harness. This is one which is being advertised on a website on the internet. You can guess where. Clearly, if someone is using that harness, all their weight is going down on the dog's